Hello and welcome. This is Lindsay for the Momentum Talk Show. And today we have with us Dr. Amba. You can say your full name, Dr. Amba.
Dr. Amba Marie Dryg, D-R-Y-G.
What is it that you do?
I'm a doctor of Medical Qigong Therapy or Chinese energetic medicine. So the quick version is I'm like an acupuncturist without needles, although it's not true. I use invisible needles I pull them out of the transpersonal area and put them in and program them to dissolve by themselves, or I have to remember to pull them out, and I don't remember. So I always kind of program them to dissolve by themselves. And it's sort of like the way I practice is a little bit like psychology. We talk about the emotions and how they relate to the 5 yin organs, which are the 5 solid organs. And we talk about the virtues you're born with. And then there are all these protocols I studied in the doctoral program up to cancer. And then to be so there's medical Qigong practitioner, a medical Qigong therapist. The next level is master of medical Qigong. And you learn all these different protocols for different health issues in those first 3. And gerontology in the master's program. And then the doctor of medical Qigong means you can work with people who have cancer stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'll have different protocols for different types of cancer. And even if someone has the same cancer as another person, it's not like Western medicine, like, oh, we're going to give you radiation, chemo, or surgery. No, it depends on this whole detective story of me asking questions, talking about emotional things, spiritual things, because we say in Chinese medicine, in medical Qigong, you have 3 bodies, physical body, an energy body, and a spirit body, and each one of those bodies relates to the other and can make the other out of balance. So it's really that I seek to help people be in balance, and sometimes that means reducing something where there's too much or adding something where there's not enough, and then regulating and balancing. And that's just a really shortened version of it. But I, right now, since COVID, have been focusing on groups of people up to 12, and I will present some teachings about specific emotions, or like you were, I think, part of the group where we did judgment and how that relates to the liver and boundaries and all these things. And, I'll do a program for an hour, and then afterwards we'll do some sharing. In the 3rd hour, I'll give a long distance Chinese energetic medicine session. And in the past, I did that in person before COVID, just one-on-one. And I had the option of people doing long distance, but people close to me here in California, I'm about an hour north of San Francisco, they didn't want to do it in, long distance. They wanted to come to my clinic. And now that they're doing it remotely, they're like, why didn't I do this before? I never had to leave my house. And because of COVID, I could get people all over the world. And then doing the group, I was trained to do group healing sessions, and 12 is my limit because I hear a lot of things when I'm working on people. And sometimes it's ancestors that show up, angels, beings of light that show up and are helping the process, or they're just there to be supportive. It's a very sacred ritual that the ceremony, someone called it a ceremony the other day, and I'm like, I guess it is a ceremony because I'm really asking God or source or divine. I mean, I was raised Lutheran, so Jesus is my main man. And I'm also Taoist, Buddhist, Hindu. I believe love is God, whatever you call it. If people don't have a spiritual path, I say, who do you love? Think of who you love. When I want to lift my energy, I immediately think of my grandson, who makes me smile. He's 2 years old. And if people don't have like a regular spiritual practice, like a church or a community or a satsang, whatever, they can just think of love, who they love. Or if they're an artist, that creative side of us, that can be your spiritual path. It doesn't necessarily have to be a philosophy, but tend to work with people that do have a spiritual path that's, active with them. And yeah, so I think I answered a million questions and don't remember what you initially asked.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
I don't even know if I went in a direction and said what I wanted to say. I just kind of went.
You did answer several things, actually, even some that I didn't ask yet. So that was great. I didn't have to ask them, and you already answered them. So I would love for you to share what Amba means.
Oh, Amba is a Sanskrit word meaning Parvati, the consort of Shiva. I studied also before so I studied Qigong with Supreme Science Qigong Foundation. And that was in the early 2000s. And after that, no, yeah. And then I studied yoga and yoga teaching at the Brahmananda ashram. So we had a Sanskrit teacher, Dr. Sharma, who named me Amba. His wife, actually, Mrs. Sharma, because I was helping in the kitchen, said, oh, she should be Aparna or Amba. And I was like, ooh, Amba, because I'd never heard the name Amba. And so he's like, okay, your Sanskrit name is going to be Amba. And then I just took it. I just was like, okay, forget Anne Marie. I'm Amba. And I used to sing jazz in Europe for 9 years, and my name was Miss Henry because in Des Moines, Iowa, where I'm originally from, I used to go dancing in the Question Mark, the gay bar in town. Later, it was like the brass railing or something. We used to call it the brass nipple, but that's not what it was called. I used to hang out dancing. I loved to dance. And they used to say, Anne Marie Wig. So when I went to Europe and started singing, also hung out with some drag queens there, Nikki Nicole, who's rather famous in Amsterdam. And she would call me Miss Henry Wig because I had the wig already from Dryg in Iowa, that I skipped a step. So I was in London in King's Cross in a gay bar. I've been named by some lovely people. They would call me Henry when I said my name was Anne Marie. And they're like, oh, Henry? Did you say Henry? And I'm like, yeah, I'm Henry, Miss Henry. So I became Miss Henry Wig for my jazz singing career in Europe. I got to play with Charlie Hunter, got to play with Clark Terry, Christian McBride, really big names in jazz. And then I had children when I came back to the United States 9 years later. And then I started going to school because singing jazz in San Francisco didn't really pay as much as singing jazz in Europe did. So started studying film production, child development, psychology, and I got into holistic health at the San Francisco State University and had a Chinese perspectives of holistic health class. And my teacher, Cynthia Chang, who's an acupuncturist in San Francisco, showed us a documentary about medical Qigong. And they had all these people in white coats and they were like using their hands. And like, I have all these pictures of me all my life of me going like this or like this, or, you know, my hands were always open like this. And I saw these people with their hands open and they were working on somebody with cancer. And I said, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just, you know, had studied Qigong before, but not medical Qigong therapy. And some people will call Qigong exercises, which looks like Tai Chi or maybe a little different. And I mean, Tai Chi is a form of Qigong because Qigong is like energy discipline. So even yoga technically is Qigong. But the medical Qigong therapy came from Dr. Jerry Allen Johnson. So that's the International Institute of Medical Qigong. And he's retired. And when I met him, he was retired, but coming out of retirement to teach his daughter and 100 other students. And so my friend and I were at this Taoist gathering in Oakland, California. David Beaudry, he and I were there. And we were like, we both had studied the Supreme Science Qigong with this guy, Jeff Primack, who's out of Florida. And we were there and we looked at each other when Dr. Johnson said, I'm coming out of retirement to teach my daughter medical Qigong therapy. And we were like, oh my God, we've got to study with him. And he had 100 people and he had 13 spots left. And so my friend and I got in, and like out of the 100 people, only 54 graduated from the doctoral program because a lot of people were very Christian or a little bit afraid. So we were trained how to do exorcisms. If I ever have to do an exorcism, I will be like, okay, God, I guess I'm ready for it. But I'm kind of like grateful to God that I haven't had to do a serious exorcism yet. I'm like, thank you. Although we do say if you are really, really angry or you're really, really sad, you're not yourself, right? So who are you? I'm sorry, but I'm not really feeling myself. I'm not really, you know how people will say that, like, I'm really not in my right mind. Well, you're a little bit not possessed maybe by something from, you know, a movie, but you're like out of your center. So when people are really emotionally out of your center, I try to help people get back to their center. And like Mr. Joe Dispenza always is about higher vibrations, feeling good. Well, I believe in that too, but I feel like where Dr. Joe Dispenza fails, God bless him, um, he doesn't bring up you have to express your emotions in a healthy way. And this is a big part of what I teach and help people do is honor your emotions. My motto is every challenge is a gift to grow and evolve. The Bible verse that's my favorite is Romans 8:28 that says, all things work together for good to those who love God. And a lot of different philosophies say that kind of thing in different ways. If we're getting something, we must be able to handle it. You know, I think there was a phrase Eckhart Tolle said too, can't remember it, but just about like where you're at is where you're supposed to be. You know, whatever place you are, even if it's uncomfortable. Well, my teachings to my clients is okay, you're feeling worried. Okay, that's spleen. Let's see what you're feeling and kind of put it to the organ. Oh, you're angry? Put it to the liver. Oh, you're full of anxiety. Okay, that's your heart. Okay, you're fearful. You're lonely. Oh, okay, that's your kidney. So once you identify it, it loses a little power and kind of place it where it goes, but then honoring it. So 4 out of the 5, which you learned a bit about, have sounds. So we make a sound that vibrates in the vibration of that organ, because every organ has a different vibration speed. It regenerates the liver, like I think it's 1 month and you have a brand new liver. So it's regenerating all the time. So we use these sounds to let go of like liver. Right now we're coming into spring, so we might find ourselves a little more irritated or a little more angry or impatient because it's becoming spring. So that relates to liver. So we do the sound like whoa. And there's a whole process with it. We make a vortex, it goes into the earth to get recycled and transmuted. And my big thing is we're honoring those emotions because we're learning something from them. When I have clients, I say, surrender to whatever the lesson you're supposed to be getting is. But it's not just surrender, it's intentionally saying, I'm intending that I'm going to learn what I'm supposed to be learning, but then also my intention is to heal and grow and evolve, or my intention is to be at that higher vibration so I can manifest things, so I can bring things to me. Because when we're in the feeling good vibrations, yes, we can have that old law of attraction, more to be grateful for, you'll attract more to be grateful for. More complaints, you'll attract more to complain about. So I want people to feel good, have good feeling thoughts. But unlike Joe Dispenza, and maybe I don't know him that well, maybe he talks about expressing the emotions in a healthy way. But for my clients, it's really important to honor your emotions and let them go in healthy ways. And like I'm doing on Sunday, the 14th of March, 2021, I do have a depression and PTSD 3-hour webinar with the last hour is healing work for the group. There's a few spots left, but it's only for 12 people. And we're not going to re-traumatize everybody. We're not going to talk about what happened in our lives that was traumatic. It's for people to know, okay, yeah, I have stuff in the past. And then we're going to do these exercises to reduce it, which last week, I think you learned the beating the bag exercise, which is really a wonderful exercise for people with liver. I mean, it really helps us release things like when we talk about women in the United States, you're considered a BICGH if you express anger and stand up and say, hey, dude, that's not okay. Stop that. No, I don't want to do that. No, it's okay to set boundaries. That's got a lot to do with the liver. And when we don't get a chance to do that, we need to let it out. And so like the clients that we did it last week, the beating the bag, but for the judgment workshop, and this is also where boundaries are crossed when we have PTSD sometimes or depression. We beat the bag to let go of the toxic energy, and the exercise it really lets, everyone said, oh, I feel so much lighter. And we do want to feel lighter, but then we want to retonify or recharge the positive emotions because we always have them, but sometimes we just need to spark plug them a little bit. So.
Great analogy with the spark plug. Maybe for people that don't know what the beating of the bag is, and I can explain as well. Maybe you just explain, if you could, what is inside the bag.
It's so a 10-pound bag of rice. And if you come on next week, or if you're able to come in the future, because I do them pretty regularly, it's a 10 pound or 20 bag rice that you put you're never going to eat it. You're putting an old pillowcase on it. You're wrapping it up with duct tape. You're getting a couple wooden dowels, kind of like the kind that you'd have in your closet that you hang your clothes on. You go to a hardware store, and they really want to be as big as you can hold them. Like, where's the screen? Pretty big, long dowels. You hold on to them and you're going to hit the bag in a certain way. And as you hit it in a certain way, you start out with a heart sound, which is ha, but you're doing a ha, 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 as you're hitting it in a certain way, the way you bend your knees, you're doing it a certain way so you're not going to injure your body. And then you switch to no as you're hitting it. So you always have to tell your neighbors, your family, I'm going to be really loud, and it's not an emergency. Do not call the police. Or I do it at the ocean here in California when I lived in Pacific Grove, Monterey Bay area. I would do it at the ocean because, nobody's going to hear you there because of the loud ocean, or in the whatever. But you are loud and you're going, ha, ha, ha. And at a certain point you switch to no, no, no. And you're like yelling it. And it's just great because you're letting out from the liver any anger, frustration, impatience, or boundaries crossed. It's not something you do every day. It's something that's it's now we're in spring, we do it a little more. But we do it in the 5. So we do a 6-week course at every season change. I call it the 5 yin organ unity with divine interactive group. So that's 5 you dig. And it's actually 6 weeks because 1 week we focus on the transition between seasons. So I have 4 different groups going when I do that. And we focus on one organ at a time and everything to do with that organ and all the exercise. Well, not all the exercises, but we focus on some strong, good exercises. So when we get to the liver, we're focusing on that beating the bag exercise, or we might do another one. We'll see. But that is the most powerful one, I think, for the liver.
Yeah, that was powerful. And I did it without the props even, and I could feel the difference. And you had a really great one in the previous training that had the
Oh yeah, the old man and tide pool. Yeah, old man and tide pool is the one exercise that really brings up old stuck emotions. So anything like any transition, so it's a really powerful exercise to do during change of seasons transition. If you lose a job, if you break up with somebody, any transitions, even positive transitions, it's a good exercise to do. It is an exercise with a contraindication. So like all these exercises I give, you want to be in my care or in a doctor of medical Qigong's care because they're prescriptions. They're prescription exercises that some of them you can do on your own, or some of them I'll tell you, like, put this in your medicine cabinet or your toolbox, for later. Like you take Gan Mao Ling or Yin Chow when you get a cold, herb formula. Well, these are formulas or meditations or exercises for certain reasons. Now, if I have a cancer patient, I have them do Old Man and Tide Pool 3 times a day. And at least for 2 weeks. There's the other contraindication. You never do Old Man and Tide Pool more than 2 weeks. You don't. You can stop for a few days and do it again, but you don't do it longer than if you're doing it every day for 20 minutes. You don't do it past 2 weeks. And if you're in my program, I explain all that. But it is great. It feels good. You're doing a lot of movement. You're hitting every organ except for the kidney with that exercise. And it really does bring up old emotions that are stuck. So when you have transitions in your life, like the transition to the season, that's the most powerful time to do it. That's the most powerful gift about that exercise, is it then brings up old stuff so you can vomit it out, so to speak. It's like when you do a fast and you get old stuff out of your large intestine. If you're doing like a 30-day fast, how the old stuff comes out of the tissues of the large intestine. So it's like kind of like that. You're really doing the old man and tide pool to bring up old stuff and let it go. And it's an ongoing thing. We can heal from something, and then later we're triggered again. And then we want to do it again. We can really process stuff in therapy, or talk therapy, or in some healing work, and we can feel really good for a while. But it's called a practice for a reason. We're not. I mean, if we're all perfect, we'll turn into a rainbow and disappear. We'll be a rainbow body. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm doing all this stuff to be better. I was saying how I got into this was like I saw that thing in my holistic health class with Caroline Chang, and Cynthia Chang, and it was something that I was noticing in my life. I was at the point where my mother died, and she was not supposed to die. It was like suddenly my first husband and I had a miscarriage. And if anyone in your world has had a miscarriage, count that as they have lost a child, because sometimes people are like, so what? You had a miscarriage. Like, that's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. It's like losing a child. So, I mean, you are losing a child. And at the time, I had gone into despair. I had gone into depression. I got medication for antidepressants. It did no good. And it was the medical Qigong that made me go, aha, yeah, she's not really gone. She's just, she's still here, but she's not in the physical anymore. She and my dad both show up. He passed away last year when I do treatments sometimes. And he was much harder because I was taking care of him for a year and a half with dementia. And I still, with him, I still experience the grief. And then I'm like, oh, lungs, sadness, grief. Shong. And I'm honoring my sadness and grief. Shong. And I'm putting it in the vortex to go into the earth to recycle. And I honor what I'm feeling, and I'm doing something about it. I had a client who lost her husband that I saw for a while, and she shonged it. And she wouldn't have even been my client if she didn't get recommended by a friend who then she saw my website, that the guy that gave me the name Amba, that ashram, the guy that started that ashram, the Brahmananda ashram in San Francisco, Dr. Mishra Murthy, he is Saraswati Brahmananda, but I never studied with him. He passed away, but her husband had studied with him. And so she saw that on my website, and she was like, oh, I'm supposed to work with her. And then we worked together, and, I helped her with her grief too, of her loss of her husband. And, and then it comes up all these other things like the old man and tide pool. So that's a loss. That's a transition. Somebody's leaving. That's a transition. So old man and tide pool, great time to do that exercise. And so as she did it, now all these issues with her children came up. All the issues with family that wasn't a real healthy relationship, but then she worked on them. And, the workshop I did today about forgiveness was like people writing letters to the people who cross boundaries, writing letters to people and burning them, not rereading them, so that you get it out of your physical tissues. That's part of the forgiveness part. We use yellow paper for manifesting as well. So I think you read the manifestation, the first thing. So this is the thing, is like everything at the end of the day is about manifesting. It's like, what do you want in your life? Good health, better relationships, more money, more perfect, ideal clients. What do you want? It's like, you have to decide what you want, but you also ideally have to let go of stuff that's no longer serving you. Emotions that are toxic, feelings of lower vibration, the stuff that's uncomfortable, but you want to honor it first and say, okay, God, what are you trying to teach me? Or source, whatever you say, what am I supposed to be learning? Because if you don't get the lesson, you're going to get the same stuff over and over and over again. That's true with relationships. People who have the same relationship again and again and again with an abusive guy, or somebody who's like codependent or whatever. If you don't get the lesson from whatever, you're going to keep repeating it until you learn that valuable lesson. And when you learn it, then you evolve, you spiritually up level. And the more you can up level, the name of my book, which is not finished yet, is Butterflies Don't Have Caterpillar Problems. And it's true, because as you evolve spiritually, same things aren't going to bother you anymore. And it's mostly based on the research with my cancer patients. I have a few more cancer patients I'm including in the research, and I'm trying to get the book done. And even if I don't finish with these clients, I'm going to release it because I'm tired of having it. I've had it 12 years, this book. And I want to be finished with it. I have other books I want to write about the season changes specifically, and like basically a book with a calendar in it, and like, okay, these are the exercises you want to do. We're like in winter still, so you want to do kidney stuff. Okay, now we're in transition. So every transition we go through spleen, which is worry and overthinking. So right now, if you're feeling a bit of fear, loneliness, worry, overthinking, frustration, impatience, guess what? That's normal. We're transitioning. Okay. And so, but then using it for like a jumpstart, a spark plug to grow and evolve and manifest. So when we have these transitions between the uncomfortable emotions to the positive ones, so see, this is what Joe Dispenza completely misses out. God bless him. Again, I love him. Okay. Just gonna say I love him. Is that, you know, when you transition, that's when you can manifest more. So between the seasons, you can manifest more. You can use the power of nature and the shifting of seasons. And you can use the power of, you know, my uncomfortable emotions. And I say every challenge is a gift to grow and evolve. Those cancer patients at first say, how can you call cancer a gift? And I'm like, because you get to look at your life really hard and say, what needs to change? And what am I supposed to learn? And with children, when children get it, often it's not about the children, it's about the parents. Like the parents have something that they've got to learn. It's not really about like the kids, you know, because what have they done, you know, little ones. So it's a hard lesson. It's really, but it's not that hard, really. I mean, if you look at cancer as toxic heat, it's not cancer, it's toxic heat. Look at it for what it is. And there's a way to work with it. Yeah, and so, yeah, so my big thing is helping people feel better and expressing those emotions. And when they're feeling better, then using those tools to manifest what they want to bring into their life, and using like the manifestation ritual, which is Taoist, but you can put Christian on it. You can put whatever you believe in on it. And I mean, I manifested my house that I'm in right now. I manifested my husband. My big joke is I forgot to say a few things on my list. So you can write more detail, the better when you manifest. But I mean, I'm very grateful for my husband. He's got everything. I said the height, I said the artist, I said the blue-green eyes. I got like, you know, forgot to say my kind of humor. We have two kinds of humor. But yeah, so I mean, it's fun, it's powerful. And I like to create a community when we work on these things, a Facebook group that we can share stuff. And even when I don't have a lot of stuff going on, like I have this 4-month Healthy Habits Challenge. So everybody can like share what they're eating, what they're exercising, and they can do one guided meditation a day to get a point. People get points. And I have like 5 meditations that are guided that they can do. It's only 5 minutes long. So yeah.
Beautiful. You said there's so many amazing things that I could just nod my head in agreement to or elaborate on, but I think you covered so many great topics. I'm curious how people can find you. I know if you want to just explain your website, I know it, but I'd like you to share it.
Yeah, well, I have 2.
Oh, okay. I know about Sit Wellness, but
because one failed and I couldn't get hold of my web designer, and I'm like, make one real fast. So the one that I made really fast is called The Qigong Lady, Qigong Lady. And on YouTube, I'm also The Qigong Lady, Dr. Amba. There's another The Qigong Lady or Qigong Lady who's completely different. But I'm The Qigong Lady, Dr. Amba, AMBA. And my website, that's the best one, is Sit Wellness, S as in Sam, I, T as in Tom, wellness.com. It's really Sunrise Integrative Therapies, because medical Qigong is integrative. We can do it with Western medicine. We can do it with other kinds of medicine. You know, it adds on to help what people are doing. If people are going to go for Western treatment for cancer, we can give them exercises to decrease the effects of the negative things from chemo or from radiation, so that they have it really directed to work on the cancer only and not attack the weaker organs, and give them exercises and meditations to help with nausea and having more hunger, because that's the big thing is people stage 4, they don't want to eat. They're not comfortable eating. They don't feel hunger. So yeah, that's one big thing.
That can be really helpful. And it's great that I'm glad that you said that, because that opens the door for many other people that are taking the traditional approach per se, and they can still get the benefits of Qigong.
Yeah, and pregnancy too. People who I've worked with who got pregnant, like they had some healing work to do around previous abortions, or healing work to do with relationships. Like this one client I had, really smart graduate student who was having a long-term wonderful relationship with a guy, and this bad kind of guy kept coming into her life who she had this attraction energy with, and he kept kind of threatening the good relationship. And she had some trauma she needed to heal around her womb and her belly, and she had tried getting pregnant before, and first we had to like cut the cords. So I do energetic cord cutting with that guy, and she had to really admit to herself the guy was no good. There was no reason to be with him, and she had to do it. That's another thing. Free will is really important. I'm not doing the work. It's the client. It's the client's free will and then God's will. It's nothing to do with me. I leave the room when I work with people, and God works through me, and your free will. And I'm always like, if this is your will, this is the person's free will, and I'm guided, but it's never like, I'm going to heal you. Because if I was doing that and anybody was doing that, that's like gray or black magic, I want to be known as a powerful healer. No, it can't be. It has to be God's will and the person's free will. And it can be nothing to do with me. Because sometimes people have cancer and they can't get better because their free will doesn't want to get better, because their husband was going to leave them. But now because they have cancer, he's staying. So that's a secondary gain. They don't want to get better. So but with this person who got pregnant after we did our work, and she later got married, and we stayed in touch. I did some work with her, and she was trying to get pregnant, and I helped her with this meditation and this thing to really ask the baby, because we choose our parents for whatever lessons they're going to give us. Maybe it's not a great lesson like, here, catch the ball. It's forgiveness or something heavy, right? But yeah, so she did it. She got pregnant. She was happy. So I help people get pregnant. Maybe it won't be like the story of hers. Yeah, the only thing I can't do is work on people who are pregnant, because medical Qigong, the energy is so strong that it will cause a miscarriage. And my teacher had this one guy that was an acupuncturist. And even though he wasn't doing medical Qigong, he was working in acupuncture, he caused more than one woman to have a miscarriage. And he's like, oh, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do it. And it happened a third time. And my teacher said, look, I told you, if you are a Qigong practitioner, you cannot work on pregnant women, even if it's acupuncture, because that so amount of energy. And then the baby feels that energy of because we're like working with the heaven and the earth and the connection, and the baby sees the connection and goes, I want to go back. Hell no, I'm not coming into the world. Yeah, because we have free will in this world. So usually people want to come in to the world, but sometimes it's like, well, they had a lesson they had to learn, but I guess, but yeah, it wouldn't have happened. But really, we kind of swore that, we're going to do the right thing and not work on pregnant women, unless that's their choice, but that's another story. So, yeah, so everybody I can help who wants to work with me, except pregnant women, but if they want to get pregnant. So.
Prior to conception and after delivery. So we'll keep that category. I'm glad you mentioned all the things that you can do, and that for people that are pregnant to know that. And that's only a phase. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to share? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up here. Great interview.
No, just that I have the thing coming up on March 14th to reduce the symptoms of PTSD and depression and build up the self-confidence and the compassion for oneself and joy and tranquility in your life. And then the 6-week course is coming up, which will touch on every one of the 5 yin organs, and it happens 4 times a year. This this month, every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, I also have a free hour-long program focusing on a different thing. So it's a quick 30-minute teaching or 20-minute, and then about a 25-minute long distance healing for the group, up to 12 people. So it's the newer people get to be in it. Or if it's like a combo, we say the first 12 people. So they feel and get to experience medical Qigong therapy, which is a Chinese energetic medicine. And then they can have questions at the end. And after every session, I do something where I lift up their spirit and energy body and get a message of what of the 5 yin organs they should be working on. So like when you're working with me, all the people will get like 1, 2, or 3 organs to do little meditations for that are like the high priority. When I work privately with somebody, it's completely different because I'm focusing on what their goals are specifically, and their homework will be much more detailed than just a few 5-minute meditations. With the 6-week thing, I will know people what's going on with it more, and then we'll meet in the middle of the week for check-ins to make sure people are doing their homework for what they need to do. And if they're not, we'll all do some stuff together. So, you know, because sometimes people slack at getting like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do that meditation every day or that movement. And so we'll check in and do it a little bit in the group, as well as people will get a private Facebook group, 2 of them, one that's got a bunch of exercises they can watch and ongoing and be a part of the live ones. And then the Facebook group where we share if they have questions, and I do Facebook Lives for people in that group. So yeah.
What are the names of those groups?
Sorry?
What are the names of those groups?
Oh, so it will be the 6-week, the 5U dig for March 2021. So there's one for each group, and all the 5-time people will be in the same one. And then the Qigong lady, Dr. Amba, is a private group that my clients can be in, even if they're not in that they can see different classes that I've done in the past of different meditations. Or like I have them ongoingly, new ones that they can also join in live with those. So
Great. Well, that sounds like great resources to support people as they're going along their healing journey as well, and even during that period of time.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I hope everyone gained a wealth of knowledge and is inspired to go try out one of Dr. Amba's courses.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you here. Thank you to all the listeners, and have a wonderful day.